Welcome to class, everyone. I'm your teacher for today's explainer, and oh my, do I have a fantastic story for you all. Just imagine, for a second, waking up, not in your cozy, comfortable bed, but literally floating midair, completely weightless. No way, right? Well, let's dive right into this fascinating story about a boy who experienced exactly that, and we'll unpack the incredible science he learned along the way. So, here's our lesson plan for today. First, Hemu's weightless space adventure. 2, the science of zero gravity. 3, Earth travel versus space travel. Then, a quick pop quiz on space science, and finally, becoming a modern astronaut. Let's get into it. All right, Section 1, Hemu's weightless space adventure, waking up in a spaceship. So our main character, a boy named Hemu, wakes up one day feeling incredibly, unbelievably light. He tries to open his door with all his might, but get this, his feet aren't even touching the floor. He's literally hovering. Naturally, questions are racing through his mind. Why do I feel so light? Why am I floating? In an absolute panic, he grabs onto the door handle just to stay anchored down. And then, suddenly, his friend Tipu pops up on a monitor to explain the shocking truth. Hemu hadn't boarded an airplane, he was actually on a spaceship. Which brings us to Section 2, the science of zero gravity, learning with Tipu. Now, to calm Hemu down, Tipu decides to teach him a quick science lesson right there on the ship. Because, in space, panicking doesn't help, but science definitely does. So, Tipu starts with gravitational force. Basically, that's the power of the Earth to pull everything to itself. I want you to think about how our home planet acts like a giant invisible magnet, constantly pulling us, our houses, and everything around us straight down toward the ground. And Tipu brilliantly illustrates this concept in 2 really simple steps. Step 1, a pebble is thrown up in the sky. Step 2, the Earth pulls it back down. I mean, we've all seen this happen, right? You throw a rock or a ball up into the air, and it doesn't just keep floating up and up forever. Gravity reaches out and pulls it right back to the dirt. But here is the absolutely crucial point. On Hemu's spaceship, which is floating far, far away from our planet, the gravitational force is 0. That invisible string pulling us to the floor, it simply doesn't exist up there. Let's look at the math Tipu uses to make this crystal clear by comparing Earth and space. Okay, on Earth, we take Hemu's physical mass, which is 40 kilograms, and we multiply it by Earth's gravity, which we'll just call 1 for now. 40 times 1 equals a weight of 40 kilograms. Very simple math. But in space, you take that exact same 40-kilogram mass and you multiply it by a gravity of 0. In class, what is 40 multiplied by 0? It's 0. Hemu's weight has become exactly 0 kilograms entirely because of a mathematical 0. That is exactly why he's floating around. Moving on to Section 3, Earth travel versus space travel. Living in the void. So while he's floating around, Hemu notices something shiny. It's actually a giant, floating water bubble. A drop of water had slipped from his hand, and instead of splashing on the floor like it would back home, it grew big like a balloon and just hovered there in the air. Hemu looks at this and is totally bewildered. He's wondering, how on earth is he supposed to wash his face with a floating bubble of water? Well, Tipu explains the step-by-step space method. Step 1, take a piece of cloth. Step 2, wrap it around the floating water bubble so the cloth actually absorbs it. And step 3, simply wipe and wash your face. It's kind of like a game. You actually have to trap the water before you can use it. But interestingly, Tipu points out a really major difference from life on Earth. See, on Earth, we have dust and dirt blowing around that sticks to our bodies, which makes us dirty. But in the sealed, clean environment of space, there's absolutely no dust or dirt. So as Tipu cheerfully tells Hemu, you don't even really need to wash your face at all. Kind of a kid's dream, right? Next, Hemu asks about opening the door again. Tipu makes him look at the monitor showing the outside of the ship. Out there, it is completely dark emptiness. They are flying incredibly fast through a pitch-black void. Tipu explains that you simply cannot open a door mid-flight into the freezing vacuum of space. It's definitely not like just stepping out of a car. All right, Section 4, Pop Quiz, Space Science, time to test your knowledge. Okay, class, I hope you are paying close attention because it's time for a pop quiz. Here's the question. Mathematically, why exactly did Hemu's weight drop to 0 kilograms while he was on the spaceship? Think back to that simple math we reviewed a few minutes ago. All right, let's see the answer. If you said it's because the gravitational force in space is zero, making the multiplication product zero, you are 100% correct. 40 kilograms of mass times zero gravity means zero weight. Excellent job if you remembered that. And finally, Section 5, Becoming a Modern Astronaut, Waking Up to Reality. Ouch! Suddenly, something sharp pricks Hemu's foot. He gets up with a massive jerk, looks around, and realizes he is sitting right up in his very own bed. He moans, "Where am I? I was in space." Yep, it turns out his amazing space trip and his whole science lesson with Tipu was actually just a wonderful, wonderful dream. But still thinking about his floating adventure, he asks his mom if he will ever really go to space for real. And his mother gives him this incredibly encouraging piece of advice. She says, "If you study well, then you can become an astronaut and you can go to space." And you know, this beautifully defines a modern astronaut. A modern astronaut isn't just someone who magically floats around. It's someone who studies well, who learns their math and science today so they can join the great adventure of space exploration tomorrow. So, completely inspired by his mother's words, Hemu takes his next steps. He immediately gets right out of bed and starts getting ready for school. Why? Because he knows that if he wants to float in a real spaceship one day, he has to prepare for his future right now, starting with his education. We're going to end our explainer today with this really powerful quote from the text about the absolute thrill of what lies beyond our planet. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not, and it is one of the great adventures of all time. The universe isn't waiting for us. It is out there, just waiting to be discovered. So, my final question to you, the class, is this. Will you study hard enough to join the great adventure of space? The stars are definitely waiting for those who are willing to put in the work. Thank you so much for joining me for today's explainer class, and as always, keep looking up.